Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is walking around with a headache they cannot explain. Maybe it has lasted weeks. Maybe months. Maybe years. They have tried every tablet, every treatment, every doctor they could find. Nothing works. The pain just keeps coming back. For most people, the answer is stress or tension or something simple. But for one man in rural China, the answer was something so unbelievable that when doctors finally discovered it, they could not fully explain how he was still alive. There was a 4-inch rusty knife blade buried inside his brain. And it had been there for 26 years. This is a story about 2 men, 2 knives, and 2 of the most extraordinary cases of human survival that medical science has ever recorded. And before we are done, you are going to find yourself questioning everything you think you know about the human body and what it is capable of enduring. Let's start with Duorijie. He was a farmer from Fuyan, a small, rural county in China's northwestern Qinghai province. In 1994, Duorijie was going about his ordinary life when he was attacked in a violent mugging. During the assault, he was stabbed in the head. The attackers fled. Duorijie somehow survived the initial attack and eventually sought basic medical treatment. But here is the critical detail: the knife blade had broken off during the attack and embedded itself deep inside his skull. And nobody knew. Not the doctors who treated him. Not his family. Not Duorijie himself. The wound on the outside healed over. The blade stayed inside. And life went on. For the next 2 decades, Duorijie lived with symptoms that quietly worsened year by year. He developed chronic, relentless headaches that no medicine could touch. He gradually lost vision in his right eye. He found that he could not laugh properly, could not yawn, could not even cough without triggering sharp pain. Simple, ordinary human actions, the things we do dozens of times a day without thinking, became sources of suffering for him. His family watched him deteriorate slowly over the years. And yet, because Duorijie lived in a remote rural area with limited access to advanced medical care, and because the connection between his mugging in 1994 and his ongoing symptoms was never made, the real cause of his suffering remained completely hidden. It was not until 2012, 18 years after the attack, that Duorijie's headaches became so unbearable that he finally sought more serious medical help. Doctors examined him and ordered imaging of his skull. And what appeared on that scan stopped the room. There, buried inside the brain of this 76-year-old farmer, was a 4-inch blade. Rusty. Intact. Lodged deep in brain tissue that had, over decades, somehow grown and adapted around it. The medical team was stunned. In all their years of practice, none of them had seen anything like it. The blade had been millimeters away from arteries that, if severed, would have killed Duorijie instantly. It had been pressing against brain tissue for 26 years. And yet, the man was walking, talking, farming, and living his life. The surgery to remove the blade was extraordinarily delicate. One wrong movement, one slip of the instrument, and Duorijie could have bled to death on the table. The surgical team worked carefully and precisely, extracting the blade piece by piece. When it was over, Duorijie looked at the doctors and said something that became one of the most quoted lines in the entire story of his case. He said, "The doctors have given me a second chance at life and ended my nightmare of more than 20 years. Now, as astonishing as Duorijie's story is, he is not the only man to have lived through something like this. In 2006, a 37-year-old man named Li Fuyan was attacked during an armed robbery in Yunnan province, also in China. During the assault, he was struck on the right side of his face and jaw. Doctors treated his visible wounds, the lacerations on his skin, and sent him home. What nobody realized was that during the attack, a 4-inch knife blade had snapped off and driven itself deep into Li's skull, entering through his jaw and embedding in his brain tissue. The wound closed. The blade stayed. And Li Fuyan went home completely unaware that he had a knife inside his head. For the next 4 years, Li suffered from chronic, debilitating migraines. He tried every treatment available to him. Painkillers, therapies, consultations with multiple doctors. Nothing provided lasting relief. The headaches kept returning, always severe, always unexplained. It was not until 2010, when doctors finally decided to take a comprehensive X-ray of his skull to search for any possible cause, that the truth was revealed. There on the screen, sharp, unmistakable, impossible to misread, was the image of a 4-inch blade sitting inside Li Fuyan's head. The surgical team at People's Hospital of Yuxi removed it successfully. When it was done, They described his survival as nothing short of a miracle. The blade had been positioned in one of the most dangerous possible locations, close to major blood vessels, pressed against delicate brain tissue, and yet Lee had carried it around for 4 years while holding down a life, managing pain, and going about his days. So how is any of this possible? How does a human being walk around with a metal blade inside their brain and survive? The answer lies in one of the most remarkable properties of the human brain, its ability to adapt. When a foreign object enters the brain slowly and without catastrophically severing major blood vessels, the surrounding tissue can, in some cases, adjust to its presence. Blood vessels reroute slightly. Tissue shifts and accommodates. The brain, in a sense, works around the intruder. This is not guaranteed. It is not common. It is, by any medical standard, extraordinarily rare. But it is real. And these two men are living proof of it. What their stories leave us with is something much bigger than the medical details. Both men spent years, in Duorijie's case, decades, suffering from pain that nobody could explain. They were not believed to be dramatic. They were not imagining it. Something was genuinely, seriously wrong, and it took years for the truth to emerge. Their resilience, continuing to live, continuing to function, continuing to endure, is something that is very difficult to put into words. The human body is capable of things that science still cannot fully predict or explain. These two men prove that beyond any reasonable doubt. We cover the most mind-blowing true stories from around the world every single week. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because you will not want to miss what is coming next. See you in the next one.